Hello everyone, I'm teacher Karen Mortera, and I will be your English teacher for today. We are in quarter 2, week 5, day 3. And our topic for today is the analysis of the poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Our objective is to analyze literature as a means of understanding and changing values in the VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. So, are you ready? Great! Let's proceed. First, let me ask you this question. What I want you to do is to reflect and answer this question on your mind only, okay? So, can you recall a time when you have to deal with a difficult situation? Life tests us and gives us dark times. But remember that it is still up to us on how are we going to deal with our difficulties or problems in life. So the question I ask you have something to do with the poem that we will discuss today. It is a poem entitled Invictus, written by William Ernest Henley. So let's find out the meaning of the poem and let us try to understand how it is connected with the author. I know that you're all ready, so let's begin. When we say Invictus, it means unconquerable or undefeated in Latin. Before we proceed with the discussion, let me give you the meaning of the unfamiliar words that we will encounter while reading the poem. The first unfamiliar word is bludgeoning. When we say bludgeoning, it means to beat someone repeatedly with a bludgeon or other heavy object. Let's use it in a sentence. An autopsy revealed that the man had suffered bludgeoning to his face and head, with his skull sustaining multiple fractures. Next word is winced. It means to give a slight involuntary grimace or shrinking movement of the body out of or in anticipation of pain or distress. Let's use it in a sentence. He winced and then took a determined step in her direction. Then we have unbowed. It means unstoppable. Example, the losing team left the field exhausted but unbowed. We also have wrath, which means fury, madness, hostility, or bitterness. Look at this sample sentence. I will not testify against the gangster because I am afraid of his wrath. Then we have unconquerable, which means incapable of being conquered. Let's take a look at this sample sentence. When the strength of the human spirit is expressed in that way, it becomes quite unconquerable. Next is menace, which means a threat or danger. Let's read the sample sentence. The menace in his voice made her want to leave even more. Lastly, we have fate, which means the course of someone's life or the outcome of a particular situation for someone or something seen as beyond their control. Let's read this sample sentence. My fate is in your hands. Again, the unfamiliar words that you will meet in the poem are bludgeoning, winced, unbowed, menace, wrath, fate, and unconquerable. Am I understood? Great! This time, let us get to know the author of Invictus. He is none other than William Ernest Henley. So, who is William Ernest Henley? Let me give you a brief background about the author. He was born on August 23, 1849, and he died on July 11, 1903. He was an English poet, writer, critic, and editor. And though he wrote several books of poetry, Henley is remembered most often for his 1875 poem, Invictus. At the tender age of 12, Henley was diagnosed with tuberculosis in the bone. This was quite a serious condition for a young boy like him. Nevertheless, it does not make him stop or weaken him mentally even a bit. Tuberculosis led to the removal of the part below the knee of his left leg. A few years after that, tuberculosis spread his other leg as well. Luckily, under the guidance of Dr. Joseph Lister and his innovative techniques of surgery, there became no need for the removal of his other leg. He spent long hours in hospitals, sometimes days. During his long stays, he would write poems about his life and his traumatic experiences. And one of these poems is Invictus. It depicts the poet's attempt to motivate himself when there is no hope at all. When the poet writes this poem, he has already lost one of his legs. So, in such a situation of mental and physical agony, the poet tries to lift up his courage. Let us try to understand the meaning of the poem. Let's read it. Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the frail clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. Let's try to analyze the structure of the poem first, before we figure out its meaning. If you have noticed, this poem is composed of 4 quatrains. Remember that a quatrain is a 4-lined stanza having alternate rhymes. Here, each stanza is a quatrain because it is structured in 4 lines with alternate rhymes. The poem follows the ABAB rhyme scheme, where the first line rhymes with the third and the second line rhymes with the fourth line. For example, notice the me and be in the first and third line of the first stanza, same as pole and soul in the second and fourth line of the first stanza. Literary devices refer to specific literary techniques poets and writers use to convey their messages. William Ernest Henley has also used a few literary devices to make his poem effective while sharing a prominent message. Here are some examples of the literary devices that he used. The first one is metaphor. It is a figure of speech in which a word or phrase is applied to an object or action to which it is not literally applicable. Henley has used 3 metaphors in the poem. The first one is Invictus, which represents pain. The second metaphor is used in the first line as out of the night that covers me. Here, night represents dark times and hardships of the poet. The third metaphor is in the third stanza, which is looms by the horror of the shade. Here, shade refers to unseen future or upcoming challenges. Next, personification, which is the representation of an abstract quality in human form. The poet has personified night in the first line of the poem, such as out of the night that covers me. Night stands for the suffering that troubles him. The second example of personification is used in the second stanza, such as, under the bludgeonings of chance, as if the chance is a human who can be hit by someone. And then imagery, which is a visual symbolism. The use of strong imagery in the poem enables the reader to feel the writer's emotion. Henley has used images appealing to the sense of sight, such as black as the pit, my head is bloody, and beyond displays of wrath and tears. These images help the readers to feel the pain and courage that have helped the speaker to overcome his misery. Those are some of the literary devices that Henley has beautifully used in order for him to make his poem impressive. This time, let's try to understand the meaning of Invictus by analyzing each stanza of the poem. Let me read the first stanza. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I think whatever gods may be, for my unconquerable soul. In the very beginning of the poem, the poet says that he wants to thank God. In fact, he admits that his life has no ray of hope. Rather, his future seems to be as dark as a pit. But then also, he is grateful to God for his unconquerable soul. He says that no pain can be able to curb his soul. Let's proceed to the second stanza. Let me read it. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. In the second stanza, eventually, he claims that whenever he fell into some difficulty, he always remained unbeatable. However situations have tried to destroy him, he always fights back with courage. In fact, he agrees that sometimes difficulties have made him bleed and suffer, but he never let himself to bow before them and cry out of fear. Let's move on to the third stanza. Let me read it. Beyond this place of wrath and tears, looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. In the third stanza, the poet says that horror has always lurked behind him, but it always finds him unafraid. Whenever menace or trouble has come in his life, he has faced it bravely. And finally, let's analyze the last stanza. Let me read it. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. Finally, in the last stanza, Henley says that though the gate of life is narrow, he will definitely pass it with vigor. Moreover, he declares that he is the master of his fate, meaning his fortune. Also, he claims that he is the captain of his soul. Henley ends his poem with a note that we are the one who control the course of our own inner lives. Like a ship's captain, we must remain in charge of our life's unconquerable element, the soul. Did you understand the meaning of the poem? Okay. This time, I want you to reflect on this question, alright? So if you were the poet, would you face the challenges in your life the way William Ernest Henley had faced it? Why or why not? Therefore, this poem motivates the readers to understand the fact that nobody can control our lives. It only depends on us how we choose to live our lives. Invictus is above all a poem about resilience in the face of suffering. This resilience comes from the courage to embrace life and refuse despair. And that ends our lesson for today. I hope that you have learned something. See you again next time and have a nice day.